Yes.
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 Yes. Please pause for a minute of silence as we prepare for the meeting tonight. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fox, do we have any agenda changes or additions?
I do not.
I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
A motion by Mr. Overfelt and a second by Ms. Sullivan Smoot to approve the agenda as presented.
Yes.
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 Madam Chairman, I'd like to verify that all personnel matters discussed in closed session were comparable with section 2.2-3711A1.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Ms. Alger to certify personnel matters discussed in closed session.
Yes.
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 Yes. We need a motion to open. I have a motion to open the pre-budget hearing.
I make a motion, we open the pre-budget hearing. Second.
A motion by Mr. Overfelt and a second by Mr. Painter to open the pre-budget hearing.
Yes.
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 There are no speakers.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close the pre-budget hearing?
I make a motion, we close the pre-budget hearing.
Well, second.
The motion by Mr. Overfelt and a second by Ms. Alger to close the pre-budget hearing.
Yes.
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 My work here is done.
No.
No citizen comment.
Okay. And you'll share the one written.
Can
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Mr. Overfelt to approve the consent agenda.
Yes.
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 Yes. The December minutes are posted for review. Ms. Sechrist, monthly financials.
Yes, good evening, board members. I'll give myself a minute here to get situated with no table. You have been presented with the December monthly financials where expenditures and revenue were $3,795,343.85. Along with that, you have the local match that we did balance with the treasurer. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Dr. Huber, attendance update.
Good evening, members of the board. We have, just as we have done in the past few months, an attendance update for you. Obviously, January has been a little bit disrupted, so you're not going to see a whole lot of changes in the data that we've shared previously, but you can see here on the screen that our attendance is pretty steady across the board. We don't have any major glaring issues that we can tell at any one of our schools based upon the data that we see now. And again, just as we've done every month, we want to show you average monthly attendance. Again, pretty steady across the board. This month for us is probably an outlier in terms of capturing good data for apples to apples. But again, we wanted to make sure we put this information in front of you as a board and our community each and every month so that you're aware of where we're at. But from a trend standpoint, we feel like we're in a pretty good position. Questions for me?
Thank you.
Just one question.
Sure.
So
Yes, sir.
we're finishing the our first run here. Do you have meetings with all the principals to see what's working, what isn't working? Is that a continual thing that goes on, or is that just like after every semester, or how's that work?
No, it's a pretty regular conversation that we have. I believe that every one of our schools, as part of their what we call CSIP, Comprehensive School Improvement Plan, they have an attendance piece in there. And so when we meet with them, which is at least every other month, for some schools it's every month, that's a point of discussion that we talk about.
And when you're meeting with them, is that in person or is that over a work day, or how does that work?
Typically it's in person,
Okay.
as long as schedules aren't disrupted with various things going on. But our goal is always to do that in person. And then, of course, our two directors have those conversations pretty regularly around their CSIPs. We all look at those together as an instructional team as well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Actually, that begs two questions for me now.
Yeah, absolutely.
First one is, have we identified, or are we working to identify, what is the, what one thing or multiple things can we identify as being the most beneficial to help our attendance?
I think it's a couple things. I think it's communication, number one. It depends upon the age of the student, first of all. But, there's a number of measures that we can put in place reactively that we have in place, just in terms of board involvement and those sorts of things when things get really bad. But up to that, in our opinion, the most important thing is just culture. The more that we can make kids excited to come to school, the more they're going to be there. And, of course, that's also tied to the elementary age level. The secondary level, you're looking more at some things that the high schools, I think, have done a great job with, with having some after school requirements if kids are missing days, not being able to participate in extracurricular or, after school activities, dances, those sorts of things. So that's kind of what we're working on now.
Okay. And my second question is, you said you do this in person. So is it at the central office or at their location?
No, we typically go to the school
Good.
to do that for our CSIPs. And again, it's every other month.
Okay.
That has been disrupted by weather and other things that have come into play. But that's our goal as a team, is that we're represented from our instructional team in the building. And then we always try to follow that up with a walk so that we're just checking out classrooms and seeing what's going on.
Great. We think that's really key.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Boots
So,
on the ground.
yeah, hopefully we get back on a regular schedule and it's not disrupted, but that's our plan and that's our goal.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
would say, I mentor two young men at the middle school.
Okay.
And they are very now active in after school programs.
Great.
I just say that what we're doing there is very important. And the clubs that we have, having them involved in that. If there was one wish I would have, besides students doing outstanding attendance in their classes, is that everybody's in a club.
Yep.
And that's one thing I think we should really, at some point, look at.
Yep.
Where our club level with our
Particip-
students, how saturated that is.
Yeah.
Participation wise, because I think that's huge. That's part of community. You can tell when you talk to them. It's just awesome.
Right. The court process I talk to is like the last resort. That's the punitive measure. What we're really putting a lot of time and energy and effort and, in the schools and also our team here this evening is those things up front.
Yep.
To try to get that buy-in and engagement, because that's the real way that you get kids excited to come to school. Well, not excited, but to be engaged,
Yeah.
you know, and to feel like there's a reason to be there. So I agree with you.
Yeah, the kids I'm talking to are very excited about school.
Good. That's
and,
awesome.
And glad to be involved. And they're almost taking leadership roles now.
That's good to hear.
And principals are kind of identifying that. It's really neat.
That's good to hear.
So thumbs up to what you're doing.
Thank you for sharing
I
that.
just have one quick question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yep.
And I will say, I mean, I know that a lot of these requirements, and I mean, they're coming from the state, so they're not our policies really to say, you know, what the requirements are. But and this might be a question more for principals, but do you know for kids, especially with this season where sickness is really, really high? And I can even speak for myself. I never get sick, but I've gotten sick more this year than ever. Are we doing anything to kind of, I mean, I know the requirements are the requirements, but then to work for, I guess I feel bad for the kids that are getting sick. They don't have control over that, but then they're having to miss out on some things. And again, this might be a question for the principals, but do you know if we're trying to work with that, or if so, how are we?
I think we're communicating really well with
Okay.
families when those situations happen. To give you a good specific answer, I'd probably need to do some more research and talk with them because they're the ones day to day that would know. But I would say, in general, I'm very confident that we're talking with families, and when those sorts of things happen, how can we best work with you through that? So it's a great question, and it's something I can follow up with. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper.
Absolutely.
So we did have citizen comment come in. Is the board okay allowing the citizen comment now and then go back to our informational?
I'm fine with it.
I'm all right.
Ms. Palmer, I'm going to read this before you get started. The Page County School Board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment during a meeting. All comments should address a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves an individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would violate applicable confidentiality requirements. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, nor to the superintendent, a staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium.
Thank you. And I apologize beforehand to take away from the positive tone that normally is the case here in the meetings, but thank you for allowing me the opportunity to stand before you tonight to bring to light the issues that I have experienced recently. My intent is not to disclose personal or identifying information. I have emailed each of you a timeline of events to address specific issues regarding my non-speaking or limited speaking children at Springfield Elementary. In no way do I want this to take away from the teachers doing a great job, despite not always being able to communicate with my children. I respect the teachers and have no complaints for how they have tried to manage my children as circumstances arise. Having said that, I do take issue with the complete communication failures of administration. All of the issues outlined in my timeline of events could have been resolved with communication. I've been a trained mediator since 2017, and the first piece of knowledge that I like to impart on my clients is personal to me. 2 of my 4 children are colorblind. If they walk outside and tell you that the grass is brown, that is their truth. Sorry. Because in their world, the grass is brown. I'm always open and willing to listen to another person's perspective. However, that is not how any situation on my timeline has been handled. It has been handled with dishonesty, disengagement, lying by omission, to blatant false information. While I try to remind myself the validity of other people's perspectives, the same has not been reciprocated. I have lost the ability to trust the administrator's words as outlined in my timeline. I no longer believe that the people mentioned have our children's best interest at heart. Most recently, there was a heating issue prior to the extremely low temperatures we've experienced. My non-speaking youngest child is not able to advocate for himself. He cannot ask for a coat or tell his teachers he's too cold. He sat in front of a broken unit on his carpet square until his body was so cold he started to run a fever. Not once, but twice. There was no communication other than my child was sick. Despite not being notified of the problem. Despite notifying administrators of the problem and being directly asked to notify parents, officials from PCPS ignored my email. After the second day of being intentionally disregarded, I made a public social media post that was met with support and similar complaints. Within minutes of that post, I received and posted the official response from PCPS directly stating that there is no issue with the heat and insinuating that she was the only person providing accurate information when in fact she was the only one directly lying to the community. This is a problem and not a new one as evidenced in my timeline of events. I kindly ask you as the board to take notice and take action. Our community and our children are missing out due to lack of transparency and ethical leadership. Thank you for allowing me to hear my perspective.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson and Dr. Huber, 2025, 26, 26, 27 school calendar.
Good evening, everyone, again. In front of you this evening, you should have in your packet a hard copy of the presentation this evening that we'll post publicly after our discussion tonight, just so everyone is aware. Just wanted to go over our process and results from our division calendar work that's been ongoing throughout the fall and winter. Dr. Johnson and myself have partnered on that along the way. And we just wanted to give you an overview first of that process and then the results as where we stand now, just to make sure that everybody's clear on how we got to where we are today. So if you look at slide 2 or page 2, first things first, we want to make sure we thank our committee. We had a fantastic committee that really put a lot of legwork into this, not only with face-to-face meetings and emails and phone calls and all of that, but really giving us a lot of great feedback along the way as we develop these calendars. So it's really important, I think, from Dr. Johnson's perspective and my perspective, that everyone understands this is a pretty comprehensive process with a lot of voices at the table, both in person and through our surveys and other pieces of feedback. Page 3 is just a summary of our process, really just 5 key points we thought were really important. First, as I mentioned, our calendar committee meetings. We met in person on 2 occasions and also communicated again via email and phone. In our meetings, we looked at the data that was provided to us from the surveys and also talked about just the concept of developing school calendars, right? So there's a beginning and end, and only so much can happen in between, right, in terms of what we want to do. So we really spent a lot of time talking through that, allowing folks to give feedback, and then bringing that feedback back to the group along the way. Item 2, you'll see instructional and leadership teams. Through that process, once we had drafts put together, those draft calendars went in front of our leadership teams, our instructional teams, our principals, just to hear their perspectives as well. We had the teacher feedback and their feedback as well that kind of led us to where we are this evening. The surveys and feedback, which I'll talk about in a little bit, those surveys were really well participated in, to be honest with you. And I'll talk about numbers and what that looks like here in a second. But we got a lot of great feedback from our parents, our guardians, and our staff that informed this process and gave us some key themes. And I'll pull those themes out for you as we move forward. Number 4, use of AI was really interesting, and it was kind of a test on some of the things we've presented earlier in the school year to you as a board, just in how we can use AI responsibly to help us be more efficient. And that really helped us with our themes that we pulled out. And then lastly, what we're here tonight for is just your feedback. because as a board, obviously you're a critical piece in this process. And we really want to make sure before we go any further, before we have another committee meeting, before we put any more information out, that we kind of hear your thoughts. And I'll pull out some of the key pieces that we're still working through together. And please stop me along the way if you have any questions. So if you go to the next page, you'll see a quick summary of our parent and guardian feedback. We had 417 responses on that survey, which is really impressive.
Yes, it is.
Just to be honest with you, that's a lot of information that we were able to use as we went through. You'll see 4 key points that we really focused on in that survey. School start date. The majority of our respondents were in favor of starting after Fair Week. They did not want to get in front of that, did not want to interfere with that. And that was a key theme that we were able to glean out of that feedback from the survey. Early releases, it looked to us from the committee standpoint, and you'll see this on staff as well, that the early release days, half days, are really are not favorable for our families because of the impact they have. Also, a key point to note from a nutrition and transportation standpoint, from those folks on our committee, really felt that those were not favorable and not helpful in many different ways. Scheduling breaks, the majority favored a 2-week winter break, as well as a preference around spring break to tie it to Easter or keep it with local divisions around. And then lastly, professional development days. Many parents wanted to end before Memorial Day, but that really becomes a problem when you look at the number of school days, and if we're going to start after the Fair Week, it's a challenge. There's only so many days in the year when we have competing priorities, and I just wanted to kind of make that point clear. If you go to the next page, you'll see staff feedback. Again, very favorable responses. 315 staff members responded to the survey, and you'll see in that chart the distribution by school or department. Again, school start date was very similar to parents after Fair Week. The thing I have bolded there for you just to consider as I get to my next point and next slide, there's concerns related about the number of preschool year work days. However, there's also concern about the opportunity for unencumbered work days, if that makes sense. And so as we went through this calendar, we were kind of balancing kind of 2 competing ideas that we really had to work through. And I'll explain that more when we look at the next slide. Work days I talked about. There was a call for work days at the end of grading periods to give teachers the opportunity to kind of reset, get grades in. It looks different whether you're at the secondary or elementary level, but, trying to give that time for teachers to reset things, get their classrooms cleaned or reorganized or grades in, and then move on to the next grading period. And so we heard that loud and clear from our committee. Scheduling breaks, again, 2-week winter break from the staff side, and professional development. You'll see there's some comments in there, and this is being transparent straight from what the survey mentioned. Just a general dissatisfaction, wanted more flexibility, and suggestions for self-paced options. Obviously, there's only so much we can do within that, and certainly we take feedback on that professional development, how it's scheduled, and what that looks like. As a division team, just so you're aware, we're working on a year-long calendars that we can put out ahead of time for these work days, so folks know what's coming and when and what to expect. So they're prepared, because we do have to balance that unencumbered time with the work that has to be done in the training, if that makes sense. Moving forward to the next slide, you'll see just a side-by-side comparison because again, this evening, just as an information item, we're presenting 2 years worth of calendars. And the intent behind that is so that folks can plan and prepare. And so what we've done is in your packet, you'll have both the 25-26 and 26-27 drafts for your review. You'll see just days of school per year, start dates, end dates, which match feedback that hopefully you saw on the other slides, parent-teacher conference days, break, winter break, and spring break. The first question might come, why are there less days than maybe you might have seen in the past? Just so you know, if you look at days and time, we removed those early release days or the majority of them. So we gained that back in other days, if that makes sense. Yep.
Keep in mind, state code says we have to go either 180 days, 190 hours. Typically, it does, it takes off the schedule somewhere between 11 to 1,200 hours. So when we look at those early releases, they were a lot. It's on calendar. While we may not take a look like we have closer to 180 days, have more hours, because we're gaining 2.5 hours a day. Every time we talk like early release days, you'll see a lot of those off. It's just families, but it also helps instruction. So it's very important when you think about Code Virginia, getting your hours off, even if you don't get to the 180 day.
What was the code requirement for hours again?
990.
990, okay.
Yep. The other feedback we got as well, and I thought this was very telling, and I'm happy that we had the committee there to voice this, is, you know, for a teacher, when we release at 12:30, you know, to them, especially the younger kids, by the time you get in, you eat breakfast, you get them settled, you're now into lunch already, and then you're getting them ready to leave. And so what's really happening in that time? And so we kind of really took that into consideration as we work through this.
Good point.
One thing I would suggest adding is like a dash with hours. That's, that clarification, I thank you for that. That makes it very, but I would just add it in this thing, like a dash hours, and
Okay.
that way we could.
So the next pages are really just drafts, and obviously, you'll have to dig in and take a look at them to really make sense. We do want your feedback. I'm happy to take that, and Dr. Johnson is as well. The thing that's probably the biggest change that you'll see, again, if I could just highlight it in bulleted points, the early release days have kind of gone away. The 11th and 12th of August, if you're looking at the 25-26 calendar, we made those professional days or work days for all staff. And so that's a change because that used to be just new teacher orientation. The reason that we did that was to respond to the feedback of needing unencumbered work time. So by adding those in, that allows us to do that while also still doing the work that we need to do from a professional development and getting ready for school. Mm-hmm. So that is one piece of feedback that our committee gave is, that may not be favorable. The other piece on the other side of that, though, is just looking at contracted work days for our 10-month staff. Dr. Johnson, I don't know if you want to share that.
So the other piece that they create, when we start out the fair week, and we try to get graduation in that first week of June, and then we give a full week for spring break, and we look at New Year's Day, 2026 is on a Thursday, and what if you come back to school on a Friday, there's this fun. What ends up happening is you get like 300 days time. Try to honor all of those things before you know it. They're working 190 days. Historically, we try to get to 194, 195, plus working days for someone to the future. We allow 5 days, but we do ask them to do a lot of evening activities, a lot of
meetings, a lot of response to these situations. So we never, at least in my 20 years, say, it's not too to say 20 days. It's normal to go about 194, 195. By adding those 2 days from August, it gets us to 194. So if we didn't come back those 2 days, we have to defend 20-day contract, but they're actually boots on the ground on that. Always counting instructional hours, but also contract hours, contract days.
Makes sense.
The other piece is we did work at trying to get those professional days at the end of grading periods the best that we could. You'll see that in there, and it's color coded for you. And both calendars mimic the same theme, if that makes sense. So, you know, you're going to, while some days might have shifted here and there because it's calendar on a different year, we tried to apply those same themes to both school years. So that's, in summary, our approach that we've taken. Our committee is on standby for where we go, you know, from here. If there's lots of feedback that you all have as a board that we need to take back to them, we're happy to do that. We just wanted to make sure we were being upfront and transparent about the process that we went through and where we're at as of today, and what we want to do moving forward.
I don't remember seeing a 2-year calendar before. This is the first time. So that's a huge blessing for folks to have a heads up.
And the idea is too, that helps with like vacations, you know what I mean? And so I'll tie it right back to my previous presentation on attendance. You know, if everybody knows up front where we're headed and what days are off and what are not, you can schedule your things around. And also for staff, just as, you know, a courtesy of this is what you can expect in the same philosophy.
Yeah, so kudos to you guys for doing that. That's great. One thing that I think was, it's nothing to do with the calendar, yet you mentioned it several times, is PD days.
Yep.
And when Mr. Overfelt and myself went and visited schools, we had, probably half the schools, we had conversations about the PD and the content.
Yep.
So how does that process work for schools and with the central office? How does that process work?
So what we're trying to do, I alluded to it a little bit and maybe didn't explain it clearly, is we're trying to do a year calendar. So our team that you see here, as well as others, we're trying to sit down together and say, you know, we all have competing needs, right? So if I'm in special education, I need to do this with a group, or, you know, secondary needs to do this with a group. So what we want to do is map all that out and then figure out where are our gaps, things that we need to address, you know, that are priorities strategically as a division or instructionally, you know, holes that we're missing, and then have that all mapped out so then that doesn't happen. Because I do understand that frustration and I get it, you know, where it's sometimes sporadic, but that's our goal, and we're actively working on that. But it's a valid point for sure. And, we definitely want to get better at that.
Yeah, I think in further references, there's a lot of comments from the principals.
Yeah.
Determining what their building needed.
Yeah, and when they're supposed to do something and when we are.
Right.
And yep, 100%.
Okay.
I get that.
So how are you going to address snow days? Do they get added on the end of the year, or do we cut back on vacation? I mean,
So we monitor hours when this stuff happens, like what we're going through now.
Right.
We talk about it at the division level on a regular basis. We track it. So we know, I mean, down to how long is recess at each school, how long is lunch across all 9 buildings. And then as these things happen, we have a deduct kind of row. So we know as we're getting closer to that 990, when do we have to start making those tough decisions that you're talking about?
and those are tough,
They are.
especially for the kids.
They're difficult, but we watch it. I mean,
Okay.
And that, if I can add, that was the decision to add Tuesday back in it was a staff work day. We added it back in as a student day. Unfortunately, we lost it again.
Right.
But we'll look at that. We're gonna possibly talk about, I'll bring to you all, next week, possibly making a half day in February a full day. We can gain some hours back there. So anywhere we can look to make out those hours up without having to make major calendar adjustments, we'll do that first.
That's a good
If we
idea.
have to take days back, that's the last resort,
Okay.
like spring break time or days that we've got built in for other things. We'll go to those last.
Good. I'm sure the parents are really going to be curious to know how that works too.
Yeah, to be as predictable as possible is really important.
Right.
Having 2 kids myself in school,
Exactly.
when those changes happen, and you got to know to plan. So I understand that, and we'll continue to communicate that.
About when the governor declares a state of emergency.
Okay. That's good to know.
And so our goal would be, obviously, we want to take feedback after the board has the ability to kind of digest what we've presented and where we're at. If there is feedback, again, please let us know. But our goal would be to bring back both years for action at the next meeting. Unless we hit a roadblock and it's something we can't work through, then we, of course, could push that. But that is our goal, just to make everybody aware.
Yeah, so I just, I wonder, okay, is it the way we finish our semesters, and, it seems like it's an Achilles heel to us.
Challenge.
It's very challenging, particularly when you miss time, and now I think we're going to do testing tomorrow.
Yeah. And we've already done.
Yeah, done some. So, and there's no way we can get that chain. I mean, go that far. We could be in middle August, right?
Yeah, you'd have to sacrifice the Fair Week late start conversation for that conversation, and that's the crux of it all. And that drives, it really does. And now it's kind of like my point from beginning is there's a finite beginning and end, and there's only so much you can do to get all of those priorities covered in between.
And we got a perfect storm in a way right now, right?
That's a great
For the test.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a great term for sure.
Right. Thank you.
Good work.
You.
No,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all
Good
very
job.
much for your time.
I believe you are up again with Mr. Runyon, Secondary Program of Studies. So you just get to stand there all night, though.
Perfect. We're very excited to present this evening our secondary program of studies. A lot of heavy lifting by school staff. Mr. Runyon, Ms. Heichman has really worked very, very hard on this. So I really just wanted to kick it off by thanking them and everyone on the team that has put in work to this. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Runyon for the remainder of the content. I'm happy to answer questions, but they've got all the details.
Board members, Dr. Fox, thank you. We are here tonight to do the study of program of studies for the 25-26 school year. It's hard to believe. So we'll first start off with our timeline so that you know what goes into this, how long we've been working at it. The planning actually started in October at our secondary SLT meeting, which happens after our principals meetings. We told the principals it's time to start gathering information for next year's program of studies, what kind of classes need to be changed, if they need to be, who wants what kind of class. Look at the prerequisites, what do we need to update, look for edits and things that we need to, that maybe we missed before that we need to fix. And then at that meeting, we set up our other meetings that were coming up. So we met on November 22nd. We met with the middle school staff first, and that's Ms. Heichman and I, for them to bring their information that they collected from October to then, so that we could start working on putting that together, for them to defend what needs to be in there if we had some questions about why that needs to be changed. And then we met with the high school staff right after that. And then there were some more clarifications that needed to be done. So I had to go back just to their schools to seek more input from some of their teachers. We met again in December 18th to really fine tune it, put it together, and that way to get it ready for a presentation for you guys. We also worked with them on when they wanted this done, when they wanted to start their scheduling process, because in order to start that, they have to have the program of studies first to present to students and parents. So they wanted to start their process in March, and that's why we came up with the meeting dates, getting on the calendar to meet with you for informational, and then hopefully get your approval and be ready to go with scheduling by March 25th. So that was the timeline. And our divisional teams at LMS, it was Mr. Rittenauer and Ms. Damone, principal and assistant principal, and the school counselor. And they were bringing information from their teams that they met with at their school level. Likewise, Mrs. Miller, Ms. Hitt, and Ms. Weaver and Ms. Brigman at Page Middle. And then Mrs. Clark and Meadows and Miss Lamb and Miss McKay at Luray High. Mr. Kell, Mrs. Hawkins, Miss Lucas and Miss Lucas here at Page County High. And then Mrs. Pettit and Mr. Pitts at the Tech Center. So we had lots of people working on these and from all different aspects that go into that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Miss Heichman to explain. We decided to take the middle school program of studies and the high school program of studies and make them one document. And before we did that, we sought the input of the principals. This is something we'd like to do. Are you on board? And they gave us the green light that they'd like to see that. So Ms. Heichman was very helpful in helping me with this. So I'm going to let her talk about that part.
Sure. So good evening, members of the board, Dr. Fox. So the impetus for us to merge the documents was to have all kids, grades 6 through 12, really focus on that academic planning piece to get ready for the pinnacle, which is graduation. So if you'll look in the presentation at the next page about just the highlights. So now the program of studies is again combined for all of secondary, and the document is very much like our student handbook and code of conduct. It's an active document, so we can go in and make edits at real time. Again, there's a big focus on graduation and academic career planning. You know, kids need to know what they have to plan for the future. So they'll be able to open this document as a 6th grader and see the courses that are available to them here at the high school, even at the Tech Center. There are active links. You can go into the document yourself, the version that you have. You can click on the Panther logo for PayChat, and it takes you right to their website. There are other links throughout the document for like VHSL and other things where our document will take you to these other places if you want more information. We try to incorporate a lot of student photos, and the goal with that is every year we'll enter new photos so those pictures are always up to date. Again, edits in real time with an active table of contents. So if you scroll to the table of contents and you're interested in the automotive program at Page Tech Center, you click on it and it takes you right to it. And so hopefully with that ease of access, our parents, our community members, and our students can find things quickly when they need it. And then just again, we really tried to focus on career planning, graduation, and all the things that Page County Public Schools has to offer to get our kids to that point.
And then the next slide, some of the new offerings that are in the 25-26 program of studies. We added in honors classes for English 6, 7, and for math 6 and 7 at the principal's request. I think some of the teachers wanted some honors courses and some different opportunities for students. And the thought behind that was that'll get them more ready for high school with a more rigorous course. Laurel Ridge Community College Future Educators Academy, that's beginning this fall of 2025. And that will operate a lot like GovSchool, the Tech Center. Students, if they are selected, they have to apply. It's a lottery, so it's not like if they're going to get picked by grades. But they would go to Laurel Ridge for half the day and then come back to the schools for 2 years. And this is for students who want to be future teachers. So
what grades are they?
That'll be 11th and 12th,
7 to 12 last 2 years. Okay.
last 2 years. Yes. So we're excited to see that. Earth science for students. So we used to have earth science as a ninth grade course, and they would take that SOL. But when the state made the switch that biology was the federal participation, then we really needed kids to work at passing that one. So we changed earth science to earth environmental science. But then we needed to add this back in for some students who are struggling to pass the biology SOL. So this will be, of course, they'll have to take this course and then they can take the associated earth science SOL. And if they pass that, they'll have their verified for science. So this is another opportunity, and we're going to leave this for like juniors and seniors who have struggled with the biology, and that way they don't have to take, because the only other option would be chemistry. And if they're already struggling with biology, that might not be the only option we should give them.
Okay.
And we're doing outdoor education as part of the PE department. So that'll be things such as fishing. I forget what all they had listed, but things we think would be students would like. And it's another option other than just advanced PE. They have to do the ninth grade PE and 10th grade, but then there's some options. So we're going to try the outdoor education and see what that's hiking and all kinds of stuff. So theater 4, advanced acting and directing. So moving on with our fine arts and promoting that. And we added a Laurel Ridge Community College workforce section, and we put that under the tech center piece. Because we do work through that. And that's where the HVAC course the kids are taking, and that's also the heavy equipment operator. Once a kid is 18, they can go take that. And so we're trying to push that, but we wanted parents to know when they're looking at it, it's under the tech center, but it's really through Laurel Ridge's workforce. So those are the biggies going into this year. And before I take questions, I'll give you the breakdown. I know that the high schools, I think for sure, I think the middle schools as well, they've already scheduled out when they're meeting with each class to talk about the program of studies and get the scheduling process done. They know when the tech center is coming to the schools to do their part, and the tech center will be going to 5th grade, 7th grade, and we'll have people going to the tech center. So a lot of moving pieces with scheduling, but they're already solidifying dates and getting things going. So questions?
I have no questions, but this is solid. What a great job. And I am so pleased to see it go all the way back to the 6th grade and getting those students and parents realizing what's coming.
Yes.
Great job.
That was our main thought behind that. And I want to thank Miss Heischman, because one day I was working on it and she's like, that's my jam. I can really make that look nice. I'm like, really? Talk to me some more here. So it really became quite an adventure back and forth. I would take the high school stuff and paste it into a document and get it straight, and then she'd come back and pretty it up, and we would work together and go, we want a link here, we need this. And the principals, I think, are really appreciative of that. I think the parents will like it better because they can see what's in the future without having to find another document. And there is a link on there for our draft program of studies for you to look at. So at the next meeting, if you have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer those as well.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic because the student now can look at the document in its entirety and actually have a chance to map out their future.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, so I had military background and we had these books, career books, and you could lay out your entire career of all the jobs you needed to. This does that for the kids. This is great.
Thank you.
Really like
And
it.
for planners to decrease, anxiousness, it's nice to be able to see where you're going, that projection, and it makes you feel more in control. And instead of being anxious, it's excitement. So this is exciting. Good job.
This is how you get the excitement.
And I like the creativity of some of the electives, like the outdoor PE. Whoever's taking them is probably going to learn a lot from the students who know a lot already from some of those
Can we go
activities.
fishing with them?
Yeah. Well, and part of that ties back into something that Dr. Huber was presenting earlier. We're trying to find also programs that kids want, so they'll come to school, and that'll help with the attendance piece and the engagement piece. And so that all goes together.
So I'll just, first off, if I look confused when you introduced Miss Heisman, I was like, I don't even know Miss Heisman. It was Casey. So
Taking me a while too.
yeah, I was like, okay, now I got it. So I'm glad we got that cleared up. Outstanding. This is leveling up. This is outstanding stuff for our school division. There's nothing wrong with our school division.
I know, creates interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, how lucky our kids.
Well, yeah, I really thank you too, and just a shout out why Miss Heisman's here. She helped us tremendously at the rec early on with kids and getting them caught up. And then she did a great job with the community forum that we started and doing the same type of links. And you're doing it here. So thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Yeah, good job.
Dr. Johnson, updated policy GCBG.
Good evening, members of the school board. Tonight I bring you the Early Retirement Incentive Plan, otherwise known as ERIP. If you look at the top of the document, you can see that this was originally adopted in 2010. And this was a strategic decision back then to try and assist our veteran staff, not just teachers, you could be a custodian, a secretary, whatever, in moving towards their retirement years, but at the same time to capitalize on their expertise. One of the challenges with the Virginia retirement system is that under the VRS, 30 years allows you to go full retirement. The challenge is teachers typically begin that career somewhere around the age 22, 24. So if you fast forward 30 years for a teacher, they're 52, 54, 55. And, typically they begin to get a bit tired. That's a long time in the field. But health insurance historically is a real challenge for folks when they want to retire prior to 65 and been able to access other benefits. So this policy back in 2010 was a real win in which we could help our folks that were nearing retirement, but we could hang on to their expertise in all kinds of fields, substitute teaching, working in the transportation department, whatever, having qualified expert nurses. So we've brought this back every year. The particular document in front of you right now is identical to last year's. All we've done is updated the dates. And so I'll just very quickly remind you of what exactly this is. And basically, if you're a school employee and you turn 60 by August 1st of the school year that you wish to retire, you could apply for ERIP. And in applying for ERIP, you have to have 20 years of full-time VRS experience. You have to have 10 years in Page County, and you have to have 5 consecutive years in Page County. You also have to have been on the health plan for the prior 3 years. So we've got some pretty stringent rules that you've got to have had some significant buy-in to Page County. You couldn't roll in here at 59 years old from another division and then capitalize on the ERIP. If you do that and you apply, and the board has implemented this, you all choose to renew this on an annual basis, then what you're saying is that I will give the school division 25 days of the next year as a substitute. We work hard to use substitutes in their field of expertise. It's fantastic when we have substitute teachers and they're 30, 34-year veterans and they're in here subbing for our teachers. It's fantastic when we have a 30-year transportation clerk who comes back and works in the transportation office 25 days, or those are examples, or a custodian or a nurse. And in exchange, what they are eligible for up until the age 65 is not only can they stay on the school insurance, all retirees can do that, but they're eligible for the employer contribution piece. So they're not paying the full insurance premium, they're paying the same premiums that current employees are. So they get the same employer contribution. So historically, it's been a win. It typically doesn't draw more than 3 to 5 retirees a year. So it's not such a big attraction that we have people flock to it, but you think if we have 3 to 5 a year over a 5-year window, 60 to 65, it gives us a nice pool. And so we are asking for you all to consider approving this. This is just informational tonight. We would bring it back again in 2 weeks. That allows us then to market it for 6 weeks. And April 1 is the deadline for somebody to apply for it for next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Fox, cell phone policy update?
Yes, good evening, Board. What I'm going to share with you this evening is just some data from our cell phone policy survey that we did in the fall, and make a recommendation to you all. And again, this is, you all will have a choice in what your next steps are. So with regard to survey participation, for faculty and staff, we had 177 staff participate. You can see the breakdown there of the various roles across the division. We had over 1,000 students participate in grades 6 through 12. That was exciting to have that many kids participate. And again, you can see the breakdown of the grade levels there. And then 300 parents participated, and they represented collectively 536 students across the division. Excuse me, just giving you a quick update on, because it's been a while since we've talked about this, but our current policy in grades pre-K through 5 is students are not permitted to use those personal electronic devices during school. In middle school, they can have their phones on their person, but during the school day, they must be off, away, silenced. They can use them before and after school. And then in grades 9 through 12, they must place their devices in the designated classroom storage location. When they enter the instructional space, it must be silenced. And then they can use them before and after school, between classes, and at lunch. And then we have allowed in our policy that we approved this summer, they can use them on the school bus, but there's definitely some restrictions there, and it's only provided that they do not disrupt the orderly and safe operations of the vehicle. VDOE published some guidance in the fall. Then the key piece to that guidance is what they call bell-to-bell cell phone-free education. And it just recommends that when the first bell rings at the start of the day to begin the instructional time, students should turn off and put away their phones until the dismissal bell rings at the end of the day. Bell-to-bell does include lunch, and time in between class periods. We specifically asked our groups, so we had the faculty and staff survey, we had the student survey, and then the parent survey. We specifically asked, should PCPS adopt the bell-to-bell? We had a link in the survey where they could go read it if they needed to. And you see the breakdown there of where it landed. Not surprised with the student responses. But overall, you can see that 54% of those collective groups said no, that we shouldn't adopt it right now, or could be in the future. We didn't specifically say now or later. Just a couple of other questions that we thought you would find interesting is, and some of the different opinions there from the groups, but cell phones can be a distraction in the classroom. You can see there that the kids don't think so, but faculty, staff, and parents do. Children and teens are addicted to using their social media and playing games, etc. Glad to see that almost 50% of the kids do see that. I think we have to do more talking with our kids to get them to understand that they are addicted to their phones. And I think we as adults would all agree that we're addicted to our phones as well. And then cell phones and other applications that are accessed through social media, things like that, where they are they contributing to the decline in the mental health of teens and younger students. Again, you can see parents and faculty response there, student response very low. So again, I think these ones point out that we've got to do a little bit more educating with our students about the impacts of cell phones and social media. And we're prepared to do that moving forward. Piece of information that's important for you to know as you think about your decision making. There is a Virginia Senate bill right now out there that does talk about each school board developing and publishing age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate policies relating to the possession and use of cell phones by students on school property. And it does include provisions for things like IEPs and Section 504s. And it does outline some disciplinary procedures should a student violate any policy that a school division puts into place. To the point where it does talk about that the student shouldn't be suspended or expelled from school due to cell phone violations. So we're going to keep our eye on that one. We'll keep you updated on where it goes because that could change everything. If it becomes legislation, then you really have to follow whatever that says. At this point in time, my recommendation to you all after looking at the data and talking with staff and principals is that we leave the current policy as it is for now. It can be challenging to make any kind of substantive changes in the middle of the school year, especially to policy, and especially to policy that would impact students at this level. I think we need to wait and see what General Assembly actions, if any, take place. And then if you do want to make any changes, say you'd like as a board to recommend going to bell, I would suggest that we talk about that and we make those decisions July 1. They can then become part of new policy and they get put into the student handbook and code of conduct that we update every summer and present before the start of the school year. So your options as a school board, you can leave the policy as is with no changes at all. You can leave it as is for the remainder of the school year, and if you want to make some changes, we could do those over the summer in preparation for the start of next school year. You can adopt the bell now, and division staff will make necessary changes to the policy and to the student handbook and code of conduct, or any other option that you feel is appropriate. So I bring this to you just as you have my recommendation, you have some of your options to have conversation with you about potential next steps and what you'd like us to do in the division. So I'm going to turn it over to you all.
I've heard nothing. I've heard no complaints myself about what we're doing. So I'm with you. Let's just leave it and let's.
Yes.
I'm in favor of leaving the policy as is for now. Let's see what the General Assembly does. And then once we get that feedback from them or we get their decisions, then we can always readdress it. But I'm with you, Mr. Painter. I've not heard any complaints, major complaints.
When we have an opportunity to talk to our representatives. It's coming.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Doc.
Okay, thank you.
Superintendent's update?
Yes, excuse me. All right, this evening, just a quick update for you. First thing I want to do is start by thanking last week, in the midst of all the fun snow, was Virginia Principal Appreciation Week. So we just want to say a shout out and a thank you to all of our principals and our assistant principals and how much we appreciate them and the work that they do. I might tap into one of you two to finish for me, should I need. Excuse me. I also want to say thank you to everyone in the last couple weeks, this month of January, for their patience and flexibility. Would you mind? Excuse me. As we navigate the snow and the ice. And I ask Mr. Huber to take over for me. Thank you. Sorry.
No, so just to pick up there, a huge thank you to everybody in the community, not just staff, but also families. We know it's been challenging to work through closures and delays and conditions. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes to make all of this work. And I think we really just want to recognize, every staff member, our maintenance team, our custodians, our principals, our teachers, all of our staff, and then our families on the other side, just to be flexible with their schedules and everything that's been going on. It hasn't been perfect. It never will be perfect, but it's been a great team effort, and I think something we should all be very proud of. Just moving into FY26 budget process, just to give everybody an overview of who's involved in the budget process. And there's just a couple of categories there. Obviously, our stakeholders are the priority, so making sure that we get feedback from employees, parents, students, our education associations, community members, and we've been doing that. We've had lots of meetings. Ms. Seacrest has done a great job facilitating a lot of those where we're getting information back in on, what are the hot items, the things that we want, the things that we would like, and then the things that we absolutely need. And so that's really informed a lot of the development that we've had. Obviously, our superintendent leads that process and gets a lot of input, again, from staff and from those stakeholders. School board, obviously, tonight, we kicked that off with the public hearing. While there wasn't necessarily comment provided, that doesn't mean that's the last opportunity either. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware that we're here and we're listening to those requests and those needs, and we're looking at everything from that big lens first at all schools to make sure that we're addressing those needs, and then obviously leading up to our board of supervisors and appropriation. So.
Thank you. Good job for stepping in. I think I'm good. Thank you.
You just kicked me out.
I mean, you can keep going if you want. Thank you. Good job for jumping in. I appreciate it. Again, this is the Virginia statutory codes. They're just a reminder about the responsibilities that you all have as a school board and your fiduciary obligations there. Governor Youngkin's proposed budget, this is the second year of the biennial budget, so 2024 to 26. He did make some amendments that were published in December. They are now going to the House and the Senate Appropriations Committees, and they have to be passed by the General Assembly. They'll get a budget back to the governor. He can then sign it, amend it, or veto it. So the General Assembly this year, right now, this is the shorter session. They started on January 8th, but were unfortunately delayed until Monday the 13th because of a water issue in Richmond. And that session will officially end on September 22nd. Because it's the second year of the biennium, it is a shorter session. So they're going to now review those proposals from Governor Youngkin, and they may put in new proposals. They may amend legislation. It'll go to the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committees and the same committees on the House side. They'll have that crossover in February. They'll send the budget over, hopefully get it approved and send it back to the governor. Our hope is that we don't have a delayed process like we've had the last 2 years, and we get something back in reasonable time to make sure we can get contracts written. With regard to the Board of Supervisors, they're also currently doing the same process to develop their local budget. Typically in February, we meet with them and have a joint session where we discuss budget. County Administrator, Ms. Moeller, she'll propose her budget in March. We'll go and present to the Board of Supervisors our proposed budget. And then April and May, you can see that there's actions on their part, with May, the end result hopefully being that there's both a county approved budget and then we approve our budget shortly thereafter. So just the last slide there, related to budget is just the upcoming meetings that are happening next Thursday in February. We'll have a work session. There'll be another public hearing opportunity. We'll meet at Luray High School. And then I will bring to you all on February 27th our proposed budget for us to talk through. And then just the last slide is just to thank you all, because on Tuesday this coming week, you will be advocating for our school division and students and parents in our community with some local legislators at the VSBA Capitol Conference. So just know we appreciate your efforts and the time that you're taking to go up there and meet with them. So that's all I have for you tonight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Have we decided on a schedule yet of our meetings on Tuesday? As to who's going
Yeah, I
where?
sent that to you in an email. You have two.
I must have missed it.
I'll resend it to you, but yeah, you have two already established appointments.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Fox.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Seacrest, claims for payment.
Good evening again, board members. I cannot wear these and read and look at you all at the same time. They've told me that's a part of getting a little bit older. So You all have the claim certification. That is for the month of January. As you can see, because our last meeting was canceled, you have the 9th as well as today, the 23rd. So for January 9th, the operating fund was $197,412.82. Food service fund, $22,030.03 for total expenditures on January 9th of $219,442.85. Excuse me. And then for today, January 23rd, operating fund, $94,469.49. Food service fund, $25,370.40 for total expenditures of $119,889.89. Along with that, you have both lists of claims for the 9th as well as for today and all of the check registers. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those.
I'll make a motion that we accept the claims for payment as presented.
Second.
The motion by Mr. Painter and a second by Mr. Oberfeld to accept the claims for payment as presented. Any questions?
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Oberfeld?
Yes.
Ms. Alger?
Yes.
Ms. Steve?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Seacrest, purchase orders over 10,000?
Yes, we do have 3 purchase orders this evening for your consideration for approval. The first is utilizing technology funds for 200 iPads and licenses. The second is the school security grant funding from the state that is provided. Mr. Dykes and myself, along with the school principals and Dr. Johnson and Mr. Williams, work on what's needed for those upgrades in the buildings. And then the third is nutritional services, the blast chiller freezer. And if you have any questions, myself and the team will do our best to answer those for you.
I make a motion that we approve purchase orders over $10,000 as presented.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the purchase orders over 10,000. Any questions?
Where are the 200 iPads going?
Mr. Samples could probably answer that better. I believe our iPads are used by our youngest learners in the educational setting, so I think K2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They have like,
It's not the Chrome deal. Okay. Yeah.
no, it's,
Got it. Okay. I'm satisfied.
Ms. Breeden?
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Oberfeld?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Mr. Samples, E-rate internet vendor selection?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be down here. It's lonely out there. All right. First up, we've got the internet E-rate. So, good evening to you all. Current contract we have for internet service with our vendor Lumen comes to an end at the end of this fiscal year. So, we put out an RFP through the E-rate system to solicit bids to continue these services, as they are pretty necessary. We sought solutions that meted the requested specifications at the best possible price. We have preferred to contract at 3-year intervals in our past agreements, but do invite vendors to propose other contract options if they can prove the cost effectiveness of doing so. The RFP allowed for submissions until the deadline of this past Friday, January 17th. Bid evaluations have been done, and I have a recommended vendor selected for your approval. Just a little bit of information. Even though we received 2 bids for these services, only 1 bid has been accepted, as the other vendor did not complete a required on-site visit. I do that so that any questions that need to be asked from one side or the other, including where the service is supposed to go, which was a factor in incorrectly quoting this vendor's proposal. Along a number of other things. A number of factors are considered in the evaluation process, including but not limited to demonstrated ability to ensure reliability of the network, compatibility with our existing infrastructure to result in the desired solution, and ensuring that all support and repairs would be inclusive under a 3+ year contract term. And price of E-rate eligible services being the primary and most heavily weighted factor. While options of 5 gigabit and 10 gigabit were requested, we would propose staying with 5 gigabit. This option has comfortably accommodated our device utilization and bandwidth usage requirements for testing and day-to-day learning for the last 2 years under our current contract, and it is anticipated to continue doing so for at least the next 3 years. We are recommending Brightspeed as our vendor of choice for this service. We chose Brightspeed because they had demonstrated through our wide area network contract to be able to provide a reliable and stable service. They have been able to adequately respond to our RFP requirements, and the cost that was presented provides a significant savings compared to our current contract of around 26%. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
26% savings is nice.
Yes, we're switching so Lumen, who is our current vendor, did not choose to bid on this current RFP. Brightspeed is sort of taking over locally on a lot of their services.
Okay.
They kind of become the new CenturyLink in a lot of ways, and they're taking over sort of the same locations and services that Lumen had offered. Lumen's going more for a nationwide thing rather than kind of more local stuff at this point. That's where they're choosing to go.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the E-rate internet vendor selection. Second.
Motion by Ms. Alger and a second by Ms. Bryant to approve the E-rate internet vendor selection. Are there any other questions or discussion?
Good.
Mr. Overfelt.
Yes.
Ms. Alger. Yes. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Samples, E-rate switch.
Thank you. So second project, the main network equipment that handles the transmission of data both internally and between our schools has been in service for a number of years, some 3 years, some up to 7 or 8 years. They've served very well, but it's about time that they be replaced, as the majority of this equipment will be considered end of life in October of this year. In order to maintain the highest levels of service for our staff and students, an RFP was submitted through the E-rate system to invite vendors to submit proposals to upgrade this equipment. As with the internet, solutions were sought that met requested specifications at the best possible price. The RFP allowed for submissions until the deadline of this past Friday, January 17th. Bid evaluations have been done and a recommended vendor is selected for your approval. We received 2 bids as well for this project. One from INW Solutions, who I had not heard of before, but they are out of Chesapeake. Their offices are in Richmond. And one from Magnify, who has been a vendor for us located out of Charlottesville for 20 plus years. A number of different factors are considered in this evaluation process, including but not limited to the proposed solution meeting the requirements set forth in the RFP, and as with everything in E-rate, the price of eligible equipment and services being a primary and most heavily weighted factor. Magnify is being recommended as our vendor of choice for this project. They were selected because they provided a complete solution that met the requested specifications and at the best overall price. And I have some details if you would like more information, but if you have any questions about that, I'll do my best to answer those.
Any idea on the price difference?
Yes. So I estimate about 35 switches is what I'll be doing through this project. The total difference between the two after factoring in installation and labor costs is about $20,000 less.
That's good savings. Is there any residual value in our old switches?
Very little. Most of the things we use up until they are considered end of life, and up until that point, they will no longer update firmware. I like to make sure that things are secure, so I don't like things that won't update. And there are places that can give you some money back for that, but there's a lot of red tape to go through,
Right.
and securing funding and getting that back from them. Most of the time, we just choose to recycle that equipment.
Good answer.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion, we approve the switch vendor selection as presented by Mr. Samples.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Overfelt and a second by Ms. Alger to approve the E-rate switch vendor selection.
Ms. Alger. Yes. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson.
Yes.
Ms. Ferguson.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good job.
So every year in January, we sign the BSBA Code of Conduct for school board members. And can I have a motion to approve that we sign this, and then we will have a copy to sign.
I'll make a motion that we approve the school board to sign the member code of conduct.
Yep, second.
Motion by Ms. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Mr. Overfelt to approve the school board member code of conduct.
Yes.
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 Yes. School board member discussion time?
Well, I'll start off. You want to?
Go ahead, I'll get you there.
I want to compliment the entire division for working through all the issues with the weather and the HVAC things and the problems we've had. I mean, it's the communications have been, I think, first class, first rate, letting everybody know what's going on. And I surely hope that the parents appreciate the openness and notifications that they've received. It's been tough for everybody all over the entire county. So I don't know if we're out of the woods yet. We'll see. We're going to still have some cold, maybe some more snow. The other thing watching and participating in this division over the past year or so, it's really impressive to see how we've continued to climb, continue to improve, and to make leaps in progress. I mean, just for example, the program of instruction, that was very impressive. Really great to see that kind of teamwork and cooperation. So I just want to give you kudos for that, and also just all your work in general.
I just want to say that when we got the weather right when we were supposed to be back in school, especially after that first week, I actually had 2 young people say to me, and 2 teachers, I can't wait to get back in school. That doesn't happen very often. And me probably being the oldest one here, it's been years since we had any weather like this consistently. And with the weather as it is, and some of our heating units and everything have never had to experience the continual work and whatever. And again, hats off to everybody who is involved in making decisions. And I hope parents realize, especially with weather, safety comes first. It may not always be convenient, but safety comes first, not just to students, but everybody involved. So hats off to everyone who played a part in all of this.
I just want to echo all of that. And also just what Mr. Overfelt said, just being so impressed with everyone and the work that you all are doing and the work that our staff is doing. I already decided what comment I wanted to make, though. I think it was earlier this week when I was warm and had to go in the garage and it was so cold. I'm always impressed by our maintenance team. I think it's a lot of times we don't give them the credit that they deserve because it's a lot. We have a wide county and schools, and they're just trying to meet all these needs. And just thinking when we're all, trying to stay as warm as we can, they were out there working, whether it be parking lots or HVAC systems or boilers, everything. So I just really want to commend them for the work that they continue to do.
I was actually thinking maintenance as well. So it's been a tough week, as everyone knows, and the age of the buildings and things just happening, and they show up, they're there, they're keeping people informed. We really, really appreciate them. People are working so hard. Everything that you guys have brought to us tonight, thank you for working on a 2-year calendar. It's such a great thing for any employee to have that insight, to know what they can plan, what they can't plan. It's really helpful. As far as the new options and the projection that they can see all the way up till graduation, this is really a big deal. And hopefully it'll get kids more excited, and it gives parents an opportunity to look ahead and have those conversations to create more excitement. So you guys are not just doing the day-to-day stuff, you're looking in the long run, and we really appreciate that, because that is helping us get exactly where the division wants to be, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing real quick. I mean, it's great that, to do things that have been done better and better and better, but then that you all are also doing that and then creating things that have never been done, like the 2-year calendar, like this program of study. So, yeah, there's a lot to be said.
Are you done?
I'm done, I promise. That's good.
I don't know, maybe I got something.
Go ahead. So maintenance is the forgotten folks, I think. We take it for granted. And it's a dangerous world out there. If you see the Stroll Farm Road sign that's up in the trees, I don't know how they got there. I don't know, Ms. Kell, you got an idea? Yeah. It's kind of dangerous out there, how that worked out. Got to find out. Excellent work. Excellent work. Forward-thinking work. I really believe that if we can have continuity with teams, we should be a top 10 rural county group in the state of Virginia. I really believe we could do that.
Why not Paige?
Why not Paige?
Right.
So some good stuff. Feedback from some students. Automotive student, talked to his mother today. He now has a full-time job with benefits and a 401k. Spoke to a young man who graduated last year, but he's taking HVAC classes and is excited about it. Another young man who, Mr. Kale, kudos to you and the Lucas Squares, working with him to keep him in school, and he's going to graduate this year with a HVAC job. So really good stuff, giving people hope, and the energy I see from the students, and the different things like I've mentioned already. Keep up the good work. It's really good stuff. And we're going to have, I think our biggest challenge is going to be retirements as we go forward, replacing that talent and that knowledge and that experience and that community knowledge. That's going to be the tough things, and how we pass that torch is huge. I think that's our biggest challenge, but we have everything we need here. We really do. So thank you.
Hey, give me a second.
Yeah, I know. So I always do it every time.
They really say everything. I just can't thank you all enough. And for anybody that is listening, I would encourage you to come out and get involved. This is our budget process. Today was our first pre-budget hearing, and it was crickets. Nobody was here. And for me, I had kids that went through Page County Public Schools, and as a community member, now on the board, I would say that's one of the biggest things that we need people to get involved in, is the budget process, because that really makes a difference. So come to our next pre-budget hearing. I'll let your voices be heard, but this is where we can advocate for what we think our students and our staff and our community need. So I would just encourage everybody to do that.
Amen.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Alger and a second by Mr. Overfelt to adjourn.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.